אז יש לנו בעצם קליפ, למה לא שומעים כלום?
שלום, שלום, שלום לכולם, אנחנו שמחים.
Hello everybody, we're happy to be with you in lesson number 7 in our course. Hello Moshe.
Hello Amit.
Hello Tal. We have wonderful friends from all over Europe and the world. Today we have a very special lesson that continues everything we spoke of till now. And today we will deal with the wisdom of connection and the interpretation and adaptation of the wisdom of Kabbalah to the entire humanity, and how much the wisdom of Kabbalah is the practical thing that takes humanity towards its next level, towards its evolutionary level of spirituality. And before everything else,
let's watch a clip with Rav Leitman, because we remember that it's not about the knowledge. It's not about the desires of this world. We're fed up with trying to fill ourselves on the level of this world, but we want to really experience. In order to truly experience fulfillment, we need a hint for something that will bring us back to the thought about the reforming light. And let's watch a clip with Dr. Leitman that will show us the path.
It's a very profound clip. Unity is something that doesn't exist in you and it doesn't exist in me. Connection is something between us. It doesn't exist in you. Don't look for it inside. I love it, it's inside of me. And he says the same thing, that I love you, you're in my heart. This is still not a connection. This is how everyone feels the other. Connection, unity, means that between us, between you and me, not the bodies, rather the emotions, me and you, there is a connection that we feel ourselves close to each other and closer and closer and closer until I feel that me and you, it's not that you're in me and I'm in you. Rather, both of us are as one. This is something that we have to start feeling. That the place between us doesn't belong to me or you. Rather, we are together. That means together. That means to be together. Together means that we're already canceling myself and you, and there is no such thing anymore. Rather, only together exists, and this together actually is the root. This is the revelation of the Creator to His created beings, to His creatures. Okay. I don't know, sometimes after our teacher is talking, I feel speechless. And that I only have a great gratitude and a feeling that we will succeed, all of us, to be absorbed into the internality of his words and to really feel, to attain, to live in the things he's talking about, that he brings from the most exalted place in this reality. And that clip we just saw, that actually speaks about this special thing called connection, which is so different from the connection, from the unity that humanity have tried throughout the years to strive for in different ways. This is actually the topic of today's lesson in the most practical level. And we started it from a very high place, from a place that talks about how me, you, me, both of us disappear, and there's only a place which is one. And what connects it is an upper force. And from that place, we want to see how we can give that invitation to be there for the rest of the people, for the rest of the world, those who weren't awakened yet, because we learned that not everyone are awakened at the same time. We learned about the order of Reshimot and so on. So humanity doesn't run and knocks on the doors of the wisdom Kabbalah in masses and teach us how to reach the revelation of the Creator to His creatures in this world. They're still trying to search for fulfillment, satisfactions, the ordinary things that we are all used to. But on the other hand, we see that the crisis is pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. And the eyes look up and people ask themselves, why should it be like this? Is there an end to it? What's going to be in the future? Can we reach something better that can give us better life? And that stems from the emergence of the Reshimot and from us who were privileged to awaken. We will elaborate on it later on. The points in the heart, that part called Israel. It is our responsibility to lead the rest of the world whose point in the heart, whose spark is still embedded deep within their ego, to that ability to come to feel the Creator and to reach an equivalence of form with nature. And that process is very complicated, very delicate, because we're talking here about the change of nature, but the equivalence of form, as we have learned. And to people without the point in heart, it is still asleep in them. There is a very crucial and sharp question. What do we do? How do we explain it to them? How do we bring them to that? If we know that according to the order of Reshimot and according to what we have learned and everything that Kabbalists explain to us, the light travels in a very clear manner from above downward. We now have to come down with the light, lower and lower, deeper and deeper, to expand with it, to spread in it to the depth of the will to receive, called humanity, and to make the whole of humanity to rise up. But if humanity is not drawn to it still, naturally, meaning they start feeling some pressures from different places, but they don't have this inner drive like those with a point in the heart that are searching and they cannot rest until they won't find the answer to what is the purpose of life. So what do we do then?
It's a very profound question. Look, we're not just talking about doing good things to humanity. And between us, who cares? Humanity, 2 billion Chinese people, another billion Portuguese, so on and so forth. But when we start awakening from the reforming light, suddenly pops up the point in the heart, and suddenly I have to find the meaning in life, understand it, not just keep on wondering like an animal in the forest, but I have to start feeling. And through the wisdom of Kabbalah, I suddenly reach a true feeling that there are other parts of mine that as if exited me. 7 billion other parts of mine spread around the world, and I have to bring them closer, not physically to swallow them in, but bring them closer to me. It's in the place where we are, in the feeling of the Creator, to that one source where you and I and we all disappear, and there's the feeling of the one. But those parts, they don't awaken. I can't come to them and tell them about the sparks and so on, because there's no contact. There's lacking this link that will connect between them. And therefore we have to find the language that fits their life. the life of our parts in this world that suits their desire, the quality of their desire. And they're to give something which is the adapter, some kind of an intermediate phase between the wisdom of Kabbalah and what they need in this world. What do they need? They need to be saved of the crisis. How to be saved of the crisis that now pressures all of us. There we talk to them about something called the wisdom of unification. There we speak a different language, and Bala Sulam writes about this in the article Peace in the World. And we sent you this article, and I really trust you reading it. Please bring a note from your parents. So Bala Sulam says, and we have indeed already come to such a degree that the whole world is considered one collective and one society. Meaning, because each person in the world draws his life marrow and his livelihood from all people in the world, he is coerced to serve and care for the well-being of the whole world. He draws his life and his happiness from that collective, and therefore the well-being of the collective and his own well-being are one and the same, and vice versa. Therefore, to the extent that a person is enslaved to himself, he necessarily becomes a slave to the collective. You know, we read this now after Amit and I we always prepare the lesson together because, and with Tal, and what's born from the force of the together is worth something, and so we always prepare together. And I see that in these few sentences, he withholds the entire lesson we want to give. Amazing. So we come up to humanity, and we start telling them about our connection, which is the key for all good. We have to put them under the ray of light. You know, people, they're running around, okay, I feel bad, what am I going to do? We say, come, see all the possible good there is to give. Suppose we have good relations, like in a good family, or like we lived in a small village once in the past. Everyone had its own role. Everyone did his work together. We prospered. I feel confidence, security that everyone wants my well-being. I even feel good helping out others, meaning there, in such a reality, it's very clear. But what happens when we grow from a village to a city and we extend? What happens?
We lose the very natural, very simple feeling, the immediate feeling that we used to have from the dawn of civilization when we used to live in small tribes, small villages. In this development that we've been through from a small physical village to a global village, we have lost something very simple, that we're all interdependent, that we're a family, that we're connected, because a family, it's much more than something biological, it's much more than blood connection, it's an emotional concept, it's a concept in which I feel the people of my village as my own family, and then my tribe perhaps, and then perhaps something bigger and greater where I live. This is how humanity have developed, from villages to tribes to cities to kingdoms, and today we live in this one big world. Our ability to develop, what is the ability? Our way to develop in a linear kind of way, an individual kind of way, like the purpose of creation develops us according to the same Rishimot. We spoke about it. It brought us to focus more and more on the individual, on our personal development, and less to feel the collective development, the development of the connections. What is the development of the connections? The connections are always there. But in time, the more the world is open up for us, and we see that we're interconnected with the whole world, not just 1 mile from me. That's what I see, and this is where the world ends, there in the river, where my village ends. Rather now, the whole world is my village. So we're losing the ability to feel all that. And the ability to feel all that is crucial because this is a law of nature. We spoke about it in the previous nature, as you can remember.
And if I don't feel it, then we see in politics, economics, how everyone's against each other, and a person, he could be a trillionaire. Eventually, what does he have as a result? All the nerves, all the problems. He's constantly about what do others think about me. In short, the fulfillment is not felt, neither is the happiness. It's clear to everyone. If we could have some positive inclination toward one another, regardless, that it doesn't matter that it's no longer in a small family, that it's in a city or an entire country, but if we could have this feeling that we care for each other, that we have love to each other, then life could be very simple. And instead of that, we see that half the globe has surplus, and the other half, they're in hunger. And there are plenty of other such examples. Were we to feel as a family that I wouldn't allow my son to starve to death while I'm gobbling up food, enjoying myself. But the problem is that we don't feel it. And there's a quotation here that goes, oh, it's not a quotation actually. These are things that we took by Dr. Lightman, and he says, a person has to be happy. This is a goal he has to reach. This is the purpose of creation. Otherwise, he curses life and the higher force altogether. And whether he believes or doesn't, he despises creation altogether, which means that we have to reach this happiness. So it's clear to everyone. This is something that we have to agree on, and this is what we say when we meet humanity. That were we able to come closer to one another, and everyone says that, we would have solved all problems. Only there is some one small kind of problem that prevents this from us.
There's a question here of two of our friends from England, Nick and Rosie. So Nick is asking, what is that force of together? Can we really feel it? Is it something real that you're talking about? And then Rosie says, if we can't really feel it yet, so who are we to encourage other people to listen to us and to invite them to experience that thing?
Okay, I'll answer Rosie, you'll answer Nick.
You choose whatever you want.
Rosie, look, we're not pulling anyone. We're just studying now. We don't have any special motivation to pull anyone. Besides feeling that it's good, we concluded, by the way, a few lessons ago that we don't try to pull anyone. We can give them a book, we can recommend something, please go in. But not to, obligate someone to do this or that. That's the first thing. When we'll start developing and getting a feeling in this togetherness, then we'll start feeling some kind of a need, a necessity, which ties the revelation of the Creator and myself and my friends that study together with me, those with a point in the heart and the whole of humanity. You know, Rosie, like beads that suddenly you pull a string through them and it becomes like a necklace. This is how you'll feel it. And as a result of this feeling, you will no longer be able to stop yourself.
She's also asking, why do animals feel that?
But wait, let's first answer Nick.
What do animals feel exactly?
The togetherness.
Really?
She asks, is there a difference? Because it seems as if there's something different here.
Yeah, of course something is different here. We're broken. But let me answer Nick first, and then we'll continue with Rosie's question. The question was, can we actually feel it? Is it for real? So, Kabbalists say about it many times, taste and see that the Lord is good. Meaning what they write for us is from spiritual attainment. And we're invited to go there. You remember that we spoke about the roots and the branches that cascade from above, all the forces, the spiritual world is expressed in the corporal world. It's like it's copying itself in the opposite way in our world. And we'll talk about it more in the next lesson about the perception of reality, right?
Next lesson will electrify you.
Get ready. Therefore, in order to feel or to attain it, or to understand, we have to get into that dimension. Therefore, the whole process of our study talks about 3 levels. The first level is knowledge. Is that good? Okay, so the first level is knowledge. After we observe that knowledge, now we're giving you information. We've been pouring information on you for 7 lessons. We give. And as we do, we tell you to hold on to the intention. And by the way, do you hold on to the intention? While we're talking, what are you thinking about? Do you remember that we're all here together, and during this lesson we want to feel like one, and to draw the light that will change our desire and whatever, for and so on and so forth. So we constantly aim you towards that same place. The moment you continue to do it for 7 weeks that you have been with us, and inside the Facebook group, and together with the study materials that you're reading, and inside this big life that you live in this reality, all of a sudden things come down. And all of a sudden you start understanding, now understand what it writes about, what they spoke about, and so on and so forth. And then we have the second layer, which is called understanding. And the third layer, which we come to if we are persistent enough, and that is attainment. And attainment, as Baal HaSulam writes in the essence of the wisdom Kabbalah, is the highest degree of understanding. And the moment when we, Nick, reach a state where we will attain what it means to be together, then we will understand if this together is real or not, and how real it is. And more than that, we will understand that this is the only thing that is real, and everything else is an illusion. Out of the great pleasure that we have in this togetherness. It's not a togetherness of a rock festival in some stadium. It's not a football game or going to a pub with friends. It's not a together of being in a battle with your friends to arms. This is not a togetherness that we can imagine from this world. It is a togetherness which is above the differences, above languages, above species, above mentality, above culture, above everything. This is a togetherness that take our inner point and glue it together into a state where we all become one, as we heard in the beginning of the lesson in Rav's clip.
And there are several degrees to the together, and on this lesson we'd like to talk about the way to feel these things, a practical way to feel this. So really there are very special situations where it is possible to feel it, and it's a very warm feeling that you suddenly feel that it ignites between you and a few other people, and it's not a feeling that is like anything else that you know, and you start getting this sense about what it's like and what it's not, and you start feeling an emptiness if it's not there. And of course there are degrees to it, so we'd like to talk about this thing. So let's make a short sum up. We talked about, first of all, collecting humanity under the understanding that the reason for all good is the connection. The reason for all bad is separation, and there's no point in talking about it. There are plenty of researches and plenty of fields in life that show us that wherever there is separation, it's the reason for all possible symptoms that we see. up to illnesses and eco disasters, and it starts with a person that is operated by his ego that destroys all other levels. And the amazing thing is that there's nothing missing, actually. You know, there are these 3D printers that print everything today: houses, food, meat, flesh. You know, soon we'll have at home this like gadget that'll ask you, what do you want? You want ice cream? You want a hamburger? What do you want? You push it and that's what you get. And that too, due to this inner program which we have, the ego will bring us to pure bad, because each one will use it for himself and adversely against others. We see eventually any technological development connects us, but we see that it's a platform for advertisements. It's a place where teenagers go against one another. And like Rosie asked, we're all made out of this material, the will to receive. Animals too. Only that with animals, what they do, their intention and their deed is one. It's like a cat sees milk on the table or wherever, he jumps and takes. His intention is in order to receive, and his action is in order to receive. He doesn't say, look there a second, or I want to give you part of my milk, or, you know, such manipulations, right? The thing is that according to action, people divide into action and intention. According to the action, I can give, but you can't know what is my intention. What exactly do I want to do? We're gradually starting to come to know that the intention, the more you progress, we see that our intention is always whatever maneuvers you make, it's always in our own favor. In the past, even 60, 70 years ago, the ego was tiny. Rav Leitman this morning on the lesson, he gave an example. He said, look at the movies from 50, 60 years ago. He says, you see the heroes there. No big sophistication. The good hero, he was good. He has an intention to do good, to save the princess, to clean the city from the evil, and he wanted to do good, true love. And the evil, he was really evil, and everything was very clear. When we look at these movies from 60, 70 years ago, it looks like for kids. What are they doing there? And if we look at the movies today, everything is so sophisticated and the intentions aren't clear and the manipulations, as if you give and at the very end you discover that the intention hiding behind this whole thing is always for yourself.
You can see it very well how it develops also in a single person, not only in humanity that became with the intention in order to receive from the dome of civilization, when we used to feel how we were all interdependent and our desires were also very small, food, sex, family. So the intention and the act we were very close to the animate degree, and the more the human race developed, what did develop in it? The intention in order to receive this very sophisticated ego with the mixer, with the quality of Bina, which develops the humanity, but we have developed inside a broken system between us. You can see it also in kids' development. Why do we really like babies? If a baby comes to you, let's say we're now sitting in a coffee house, and this little 2-year-old boy, and he comes and grabs my croissant from the table. Oh, he's so sweet, he's so cute, how he took it, right? But if an adult would have done the same thing,
yeah, because we see that the intention and the action are the same. If it was like a grown-up, we'd say savage. And we see that someone wants to give, but eventually you see that it's like the 1+1 sale, where eventually you find out that you paid like double, triple, and so on. Also, what separates a person from animals? As long as we're in the desires called bodily desires, we even call it animalistic desires, the intention and the action are one and the same.
Sex.
Sex is sex. You want sex? You take sex. Or I want to eat. I eat. But the moment that human desires begin, there is a separation that begins between the action and the intention. In spirituality, there is no such thing. It's a false reality, but it's amazing because it allows us to really play. It allows me to do, we'll talk about this in the second semester, but it allows me to do things against my desire, things that are opposite to my intention. That's amazing, but as long as we don't use it, we see even today in the family, no one believes each other. These actions of the good, we know that, okay, we know what the catch is, we know what he wants, and the truth is that our generation has already developed to such a state where we understand who we really are. We understand that there are no really good intentions here, that everything is in my own favor, and that it's something amazing because in our times we have reached the recognition of evil, all of humanity, even though that here and there we say that there are good things and so on, but we understand who we're in business with.
We're on our way to understand, isn't it?
And you know, different politicians, they try to hide it somehow and so on. But today, everyone knows that's the game, and even between countries, between different economical manures, it's all clear and no one's trying to hide it.
Now a question. There are people who still want to try and exercise this intention of bestowal. So, Liviu from Romania is asking, Liviu is him. Liviu from Romania is asking, I'm connected to everyone, so we say, and I want to be aware to how this connection of bestowal works. So do I exercise it with every person, or should I exercise it only with a person who has a point in the heart?
Beautiful question. And
important question.
Important question. Again, I'm going to do this thing, and I'll tell you.
Go for it.
At the end of the second semester, there is the practical Kabbalah Congress waiting us, that not only will we know each other after the lessons and there we will meet, but there we will start and practice exercising the method of the feeling. The method of how to feel these things, the method that was made by the Kabbalists. What is the practical method? But at first we have to do it with people who have the same interest, the same direction, that want the same as I do. And with them it's going to really be easy to formulate that feeling, and then we'll see that with this feeling, with that mutual desire, you will be able to also do it. You'll need to do it with any person in the world.
And by the way, in this Congress, Nick will meet Rosie, and there we will be able to understand if this togetherness is real. There we will feel things in a very practical manner, on our flesh, as we say.
But if we get back to humanity, unless there are other questions.
Yes, there are, but don't let me interrupt.
But if you already did, so go with it.
Okay, so there's a question. How can I connect to others? We said that everyone are individuals and they have different desires, different dreams, different goals. How do we... Hold on a minute. How do we annul ourselves with a purpose to connect with the Creator? Wanting to please other people, is it like wanting to please the Creator?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. These are very advanced questions, actually. Friends are talking about understanding that it is very hard to connect. What do I connect to? These opposite tendencies. Should I cancel anything in order to connect? Good questions. I don't want to answer them really, because we will discuss them more in the second semester. And also because during today's lesson, we will see how those questions, very gently, we will start clarify them between us. So perhaps we should continue and you will get an answer.
We're talking about the source for all good is connection, the source for all evil is separation. We're talking now about the recognition of evil. We start gradually seeing this. We still don't have this thought that, okay, there's some kind of an alternative, but we're starting to formulate this reality. And then pops up the question, especially, there are many places, like in Europe, that the G20, the G8 get together and they're asking, okay, how can we keep on going this way, that the ego is exploding among everyone? And between countries too. And on the other hand, mutual responsibility, these two directions. But these are things that really bother people because we see that economy is being destroyed and unemployment. People are taking to the streets, and this is the biggest fear of all regimes. And then you have two known options. Either it's protectionism, meaning that I cut off. There's interdependence. I don't want to feel it, don't want to be a part of it. I'm not playing. I cut all ties with you. And I don't want to feel it. I don't want to be in it. Each goes back to his place. That's it. But we already see that it doesn't work. We tried it. We are interdependent. We are interconnected. So what do? Okay, so we probably have to be good to each other. We'll be good. We'll be nice. We'll have I don't know, different summits, meetings, whatever. What's the solution then?
I'm not sure this is the solution. I mean, we see. Well, if it wasn't sad, then it would have been amusing. But time after time, we see also declarations and attempts in practice on political and economical background, and also inside big organizations to try and reach a state where we start acknowledging the fact that we're working together, we live together, we have to reach some understanding that our life are mutual. How can we turn them into mutual? How can we turn our connections to better harmonious connections? But nothing good comes out of it. And also when we agree upon something, we see that we don't really keep those agreements. It's hard for us to keep them. Also, if there is an agreement about air pollution and such things, we violate those agreements, and everybody does whatever they pleases. And here we reach a point, as Moshe mentioned before, that starts knocking on our doors, on the doors of our hearts. It starts occupy us very much, from the subconscious level of each and every one of us in all over the world, up to the degree which seemingly govern the world of those politicians and scientists in high positions. And the recognition is that we cannot change. There is something that is imprinted in us, deep inside of us, our nature, which doesn't give us the ability to create good connections with each other. It doesn't work out. We try for a long time. It's not that we try it only now. Marx and much before him throughout human history, people always try to lead humanity to places of, well, let's see, perhaps together we can make a better life. And what turns out from all that? Only damage and destruction.
Suppose communism, Bala Salami talks about it. as he said, that the Russian nation has sinned greatly. It's not a nationalistic kind of criticism. We're not talking about being nice to others or sharing your property or whatever, but they understood that somehow you have to calm the ego down. So they thought, let's suppress it, let's have a regime, let's not let it break out, let's make everyone equal. So that could be good. But it doesn't work. Why? We're trying to do the same in education. Kids' education, we tell kids, be good, be nice, naughty, naughty, don't hit. We say to adults, if you do this, you'll go to prison. And we see that we get the very opposite. All those artificial things that we do, superficial things that we do, they bring even more evil, try to limit, try to do this or that. Everything leads you to a kind of an evil. Why? Because we don't take into account a very important matter, which is human nature, and Amit says that it is impossible to change it. Today, by the way, we heard this morning too, Dr. Leitman's, the lesson that Dr. Rav Leitman gave this morning. It's like, it was amazing. Yeah.
Probably you had a very good preparation for this lesson, and your lack, your deficiency created the key into which Rav Leitman poured a very special lesson today.
He gave a story that we already know, but it's a parable.
Tell us. Yeah, about the scorpion and the frog. The scorpion, he wanted to cross the river, and there was a frog there. He told her, well, take me. She told him, no, I know you will bite me, and then you will sting me, and then we will drown. And he told her, no, really, please, take me. I promise you, I won't. So she took him on her back, and what happened in the middle?
Stung her.
He stung her. He couldn't resist. She asked him, why? He told her, it's my nature, I cannot resist it.
And that is exactly our ego, each and every one in humanity. So, if we understand that this is the problem, everyone says you have to be nice, you have to be this, you have to be that, there are big educational programs, but eventually you don't know how to realize it. And what means could there be? So, here we reach the wisdom of Kabbalah that speak about the means that is immersed in nature. The nature that we talked about that develops the ego and the interdependence and all the system of relations and everything that happens. What is that force?
The light.
The light.
I simply remembered another story. No, I know that you want to continue, but it's a very essential matter. That point, it permits our recognition, the recognition of humanity, but people still think that if we will try to correct the world with external actions, we will fix everything. We have many abilities, lots of means, very developed, very advanced technology. We know how to control the media. Let us arrange everything in such a way where we'll stop polluting and we will drive cars less, and perhaps we won't eat meat, the entire humanity, and so on and so forth. We will arrange things in such a way that our life will be more balanced with nature, right? It won't work. It won't work because we try to correct the world, and Bala Sulam writes about it, and he speaks very sharply about those people whom he called the world reformers. And that reminds me a story about this child who walked into a room of his father, who was a scientist, and he was working on very complicated calculations, and his father wanted to calm him down, so he took this piece of journal that he had, and he said, you like to have puzzles, and there was a picture of planet Earth. He tore it apart into small pieces and told him, put it together. And he knew that this child will deal with it for a long time because he doesn't know this whole map of planet Earth. How can he correct the world, glue it together? So, and he turned back to his calculations, and after a few moments, the child came back to him. Everything was glued together, and he told him, see? So the father, he was very much surprised. He didn't understand how it happened. So the child told him, on the other side of the second side of the page, there was a drawing of a person, and I know how a person looks like. So he simply glued the person together, and so he corrected the world. So we have to correct man and not the world. And there's a very nice saying about it. Of Janusz Korczak, he was a great teacher who said, in order to correct men, we have to correct education, because we cannot reach a state where we correct men without correcting education. And here we open very big brackets, because we have to understand what is that thing called education, because education, it's a concept where everyone will agree to us, yeah, if we educate people to be, let's say, a bestower, a spiritual bestower, a giver, then we will reach an equivalence of form. But how do we do that, and what does it mean exactly?
Okay, what I wanted to emphasize was that I wanted to emphasize, to continue what you say, the light. That this is the correcting force's nature. There's no other force that can correct anything, that can correct man. Only we have to know how to derive that force from nature, that very nature that creates a crisis between us and works with the ego and so on. And the Kabbalists say about this, I've created the evil inclination, I've created Torah, spice for it. Torah, it's light, and spice, a bit from above, you spread on it, and it's already tasty. Why? Because the light in it reforms man. Brings him back to the good, to the creator. That's the force. And with the help, and here we're talking about, we're talking from experience, and soon we'll share it with you, that it's really possible to reach a state with people through the influence of the light, that the ego will start feeling that the connection with others is good. It's a good feeling. It fills us, really. The harmonious connection with others. Starts feeling as a result that I and the others, it's one and the same. And what could be good for them, if it's good for them, could also be good for me. Can really give people a feeling, and it's different from moral or attaining. Then if a kid does something, you punish him, so the kid, he learns that, okay, under these conditions I won't do bad, but because I'll be caught, but afterwards when I go to life I'll do it. Why? Because I didn't have real education, real teaching. And real education is the change of man from the action of in order and the intention in order to receive to the intention of in order to bestow. And that is an educational process, and this is what we want to dedicate the next part of the lesson. So let's move on.
Okay, dear friends, so what is this educational process? This educational process, you see the drawing? This is what it means. If we are a will to receive, and we need to reach an equivalence of form with the Creator, so we can do that only thanks to the fact that in us, or in part of us, there is a certain broken quality of that godly quality, the quality of bestowal, that spark, called the point in the heart. That one. And for those of you who learn with us, and to the rest of the hundreds of thousands of people who study Kabbalah, in those people that spark was awakened already, and we're already inside a process where this point grows bigger and inflates and connects to other people in this one common field. This is the educational process. So it's not a process where I acquire knowledge, education, or understanding as we have described before. Rather, its essence, its purpose is to bring us to spiritual attainment, to an equivalence of form with the Creator. And the Creator, that light, it is also the one that educates us. It's the one that operates on those points, because the points are actually a part of Him, from that quality. And therefore, all we have to do throughout this educational process, it's simple, but it is something very rich, very broad. All we have to do is to allow in the most accurate and efficient way to make room for the light to work in. So how do we do that? We need Kabbalists for it. And Baal HaSulam writes about it in his article, The Essence of Kabbalah and Its Purpose. He says, it is about such matters that we say there is none so wise as the experience. Only one who is experienced has the opportunity to examine creation in all its phases of development, all the way through completion, and can calm things down so as to not fear those spoiled images that the creation undergoes in the phases of its development, but believe in its fine and pure end. We need a Kabbalist who already rose above the level of this life and this world, and is in a place where he sees all the connections and all the stages of development of the Kli, our vessel. It is clear to him in his emotion where it's going to. And he is the one who can bring us the method of education and to make it, one, adapted to us, to our state, to our development, and also to take it from nature itself, because this is one of the principles of education. So first thing, look at the drawing Amit made here. He added a Kabbalist here. Did you see that? He also gave him eyes. So, first of all, we have to understand the crisis. The crisis, it's not just something that we look at and we say, oh, it happens now and it will go away soon enough. This is something that if we want to develop the method of education, we have to look at it and learn from it. Because what does it present to us, that crisis? It presents to us an opposite picture, like a negative, like of the tight system of relationship between us, and how do we operate there in our ego. It shows us that we're interconnected in a total, absolute way, without any ability to run away from it. We try to do the same things, to operate in the all ways, but the world is already advances. It's in a different system. It exists on an integral base of mutual connections. We see all the possibilities to prosper exist, but the crisis was born only because we are not adjusted to that picture which is revealed to us, the picture of the upper system. And therefore, all that we have to learn in this method of education is to be sensitive, to develop vessels of reception to that reality which I do not feel now. I can put my hand into the fire, laugh and talk to Amit if they disconnect my nerve system, so I don't feel it. But the moment I feel it, I pull my hand away from the fire, and that's it. If we feel that we're in a system, then that's it. And there are also many studies today about the empathy, about all our emphatic tools from all those individual inventions like cell phones. They have all deteriorated, like screens and all. So we don't have to perform a correction in people themselves. All we have to correct, well, first thing is our sensitivity, thanks to the light that reforms, to the net of connections between us. I need to be sensitive to take it into consideration, and then we don't need anything else. Because if I'm sensitive to others, then I will not push the button of the A-bomb that will destroy all of us. I will feel them that they're close to me, so I won't be able to do it. And there are many more examples to it.
Just to clear something up, Tamar from Barcelona is asking, how could it be that I feel a desire to connect with a certain group of people, and with another group, not at all. Depends on the kind of group of people that you're talking about. If we're talking about groups, I always liked, I don't know, going around with beautiful, nice, smart, excellent people. So, But if we're already talking about a certain adhesion to people with points in the heart, so what's the question here?
She's also asking about the limitation of the sensation. The fact that we are inside a body, does it limit our ability to feel that sensation that you spoke about before, about feeling this connection?
We don't want to confuse you with the perception of reality, but let's say the following. The fact that we are in this flesh and blood body doesn't mean anything. We are emotional beings, so don't relate to this whole thing as a mind and heart and whatever. Let it be. We're not talking about people themselves. We're talking about the connections between us, and this is a feeling that you can enhance. How? Forming light. Its primary action, increasing my sensitivity. The moment my sensitivity is increased, that's it. That's the extension of the desire. My mechanism grows. I become much more sensitive. That's one thing that I can learn from the crisis. Another thing that we can learn is the complete interdependence, and that means that there's an environment that's starting with being a small child. This is what Tamal asks about. Humanity stabilizes me, so it puts a paradigm before me, like a filter, through which I see only specific things. Egoistic paradigm, up to a point where I really grasp and perception only that which I can absorb and which is in my favor. That's also the reason why we don't feel spirituality. This is something that we'll talk about next lesson. Well, we have to give you a few teasers. But if the environment, as we talked about it, the environment being what formulates a person, there's no point to talking about the person at all. We can't work one-on-one. A few days ago, I was in a circle talking to people, home talk, living room talk, and there was this woman that says, I don't understand. I talk to the teachers and I sit with them and I explain how she should behave and nothing happens. And I told her, you're doing amazing work. And maybe if you'll try to bring all the teachers together as a group and work with them that way, then you'll create an environment that will influence them. Of course, I didn't tell her that she'll need connection to their forming light. But what I want to say, environment, that's what we have to create around a person, that will influence them with this parent time, and through the connection, as we have shown here, through the good ties between them, the forming light will be received, and it will create in them this paradigm, this inclination toward the connection between them, bestowal.
I can only mention that there's someone here who really connected to this, and he says that he cannot hold himself back. He wants to meet a physical group, and he cannot wait anymore. His name is Jonas, and he's from Vilnius.
I want to say something in Lithuanian.
You know all languages!
We'll meet, Jonas.
Okay, we will meet.
Would like to say one more thing, that the person, the experienced person, this is actually the basis of education. There's nothing lacking in our world. There's no such thing as lack of food or suddenly some fight between people or whatever. You remember Dr. Lightman talked about it a lot. What's missing?
Only light is missing. Actually, the light is not missing also. The light is in absolute rest. It fills up the entire reality. I, the Lord, change not. We have many sayings and verses about it. But the connection with the light, the contact with the light, the ability to work with the light, the ability to channel the light, which is opposite, completely opposite from our corporeal reality of receiving this egoistic reality. How do we work with it, with the light? Meaning, if we have learned in the wisdom of Kabbalah, we spoke about it from the very beginning and we repeated it every lesson in one way or another. In the beginning, there was a simple upper light that filled up the entire reality, and that light created a kli, a vessel, a will to receive, so that this vessel will be able to receive all the pleasures, the most exalted pleasures there are. The most ultimate pleasure that can be is for that kli, for that vessel, to be like the light, not only to receive the light, rather to be exactly like the one who gives the light. So what did he do? He broke the vessel. He shattered it into 7 billion pieces. And now, if every such tiny piece, seemingly an individual piece, it doesn't feel itself as part of the collective. If he starts connecting to the rest of the pieces, what happens? He increases his vessel, expand it, and now seemingly inside that kli of the will to receive, he has someone to give light to, someone to pass on the light to, which is actually the very essence of the upper force, because he gives the light to the kli, to the vessel. So we too have to give the light. But that's exactly it. If we only want to receive the light, we are a will to receive. So how can we give? And here there was the shattering. We'll talk a lot about the shattering of the vessels in the second semester. We will go deeper on that. But from here we understand that the only way to work with the light is to generate a situation where there are pieces inside that will to receive which already corrected themselves, and they know somehow out of their equivalence of form with the light and out of their place in the general soul to pass on the light from that source to the rest of the vessels. They connect to the rest of the vessels, meaning, to keep it simple, we need an adapter. The light for itself cannot reach directly to the vessels of reception. Why? Because there is no equivalence of forms. They are opposite to each other. We need something to adapt between them, to coordinate between them. And that very special thing called an adapter is us.
We study Kabbalah. And let's see on the sketch, what did the Kabbalists throughout generations do? You see your vessels here with the faucet. Any Kabbalist corrected himself. And what he corrected was that through him, all in all, the referring light could pass. That's it. He corrected the method, they corrected the relations between them through this. And this whole thing, let's make us zoom out here. And the system of connections between us. So here the Kabbalists started operating. And creating some field for the light. And they pass on to us the whole revelation. The moment we, the point in the heart, awakens in us, and we use the wisdom of Kabbalah, we connect with the Kabbalists, we actually tie ourselves to that same light. Why? Because we're in equivalence of form. And then we too, through us, from the Kabbalists, passes that very light, the same path for the revelation of the Creator to the whole, or to all of the people in the world. And by passing it on, that it passes on through us, we can reach equivalence of form up to here where we have the Creator. So this has to do with two things. And these two things, we have two things that the Rabash talks about. There's the purpose of creation, there is pleasure, and there is the correction of creation. The correction of creation is all the pipes and everything. What I need a bit is to open myself up. And this is called the correction of creation, that we correct ourselves in all the parts. How do we correct them? Education, the transition from my desire to just receive this program to a completely different program. And I have to remember that it's not me who does it, but it's the light who does it. And as Amit said, I have to allow it to do the work and not disturb with my ego. So what's the difference between what we go through, the points in the hearts, the process that we're going through, and the process that humanity will go through?
I have to draw if you're asking me that question. Do you have a question?
You want me to sketch? By the way, I can't talk to anyone without drawing. I say good morning to my daughter, I sketch something.
Okay, we're talking about connection. So we're asked this. We're all here beginners. Is there something here you can talk about and point out to a practical way through which we, the students, can connect?
One more second, we will show you the method, but I'd like to use this opportunity and look, we've decided between us on the second or third lesson that we have Facebook, a Facebook group that we all go on, and we would like to experience on an experimental basis the connection between us, to build an environment between us by which we will feel that we will help each other to develop the importance of Kabbalah, the purpose of life, the teaching, and only as a result, together, we will create a mutual desire, which actually is the unification of all of the aspirations of the points in the heart, like this big glowing red raspberry ball toward spirituality. And this is what the Reforming Light works on. So Amit finished the sketch. I want to invite all of our students. Now, you want to feel in Kabbalah there is a principle. We shall do and we shall do here. Or from your actions do we know you. Our desire, first of all, develops as a result of doing. If we'll do, we get a feeling. Therefore, someone who didn't get on yet, questions about Facebook, whatever, write us. We'll explain everything, but our environment for the time being is there.
So actually, the thing of coordination, we have to understand that, and it's going to be a short explanation, it stems from that primordial situation where one soul was created. When one soul was created, we will learn more about it in the second semester. It is comprised from two main parts, okay? That part is called Galgalta and Denaim, and that part is called Achap.
Maybe you can write it, I don't know if he understands it.
Okay, so this is Galgalta and Enaim. Galgalta ve'enaim, we didn't speak about it yet? Okay, so Galgalta ve'enaim.
וזה יהיה אחאפ, אני ארשום ככה. אחאפ. זה הראשי תיבות.
And this is Achap. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that those upper parts of the soul, out of their place where they're already in connection of bestowal, these are the points in the heart, which as us, we're already in a state where we're in a system of an equivalence of form with the upper light. The rest of the parts, like in our body, we have many parts. There are parts who do different actions. Some parts are responsible about flowing the body into the body, some are responsible about our nerve systems, some parts activate, operate the body. So seemingly, if those points in the heart were responsible for, if we're responsible for the flow of light into that system, it's still not enough, because the Creator, He wants to correct the entire vessel, and therefore the vessels were broken, and all those vessels, which are the points in the hearts, which is us, what happened to them? They mixed with the rest of the vessels of the will to receive. They came in. They penetrated each other this way. And now we have a very interesting situation here, which is expressed in our world too. There are people who originally, from the root of their soul, they were already in bestowal. That is called Yeshar Kel, direct to the Creator, that state, that group of people. And now, and the connections between them exist, only they're broken. Okay? Because we have permeated, because we have mixed with those great, vast, cursed vessels of the will to receive. Broken desires. And now all that we have to do is to connect between us, the points in the hearts, and this way, pay attention, because we're connected with those great desires. We're all connected to many more people. We know all the studies. Every one of us, through 5 additional people, can reach every person in the world. So basically, in this inner connection, the moment we connect between us, we can pull with us the rest of the people, and in that makes us adapters between the state called the Creator, the upper light, to the state called humanity, which haven't awakened yet to spirituality.
To add to that, because each one of us is included of 2 forces, the one force is the force of bestowal. We are integrated of that spark, the point in the heart, yearning for the light. And on the other hand, we are included of reception. Meaning between us and humanity, there's all the understanding. You look at me and you say, hey, that's weird what you're saying. We're humanity? Yes, but we will start feeling this system, this spark, the point in the heart. And then I'm in a very special state where, first of all, because I'm integrated with these 2 forces, I can, by the influence of the reforming light, invert my nature. This is what the light actually does to Kabbalists, to those at attainment. We transcend to the upper system. The rest of humanity, by the influence of the reforming light, at first will suddenly feel, and you'll see it. Suddenly they get a feeling that, like we said before, there is interdependence, and I feel it. How good it were we together, and so on. How good it is that we're connected. Yeah, it's good. Suddenly, all the ego and all the social concessions and paradigms that we know on the streets and wherever, everything melts away, and we all become like children. Let's connect. It's amazing. But they will come to the recognition that I don't want to hurt the other. Why? Because I really feel from the feeling of interdependence that if I harm him, then I harm myself, because I have to do good to him, and then I'll do good to others. They'll really feel, there will be a clear feeling that in order to do good to myself, I have to go through doing good to others. But still, this will not be the essential change in their intention. It's still going to be in order for me to feel good. Because we will already be connected to the system of bestowal, And we also have a connection to the system of reception. We will be the adapters that will pass through us the light to them. And what will we pass on to them? Will we pass on to them now Kabbalah lessons to those people, to those, to that, I don't know, Esmeralda in Mexico, or other names, Skilmantas in Lithuania. By the way, I have a friend called Skilmantas. He's okay. So what will we give them? Kabbalah. And therefore, we have to understand something about the difference between the Kabbalah that we're talking about and the method that we're passing on to the people that we talked about, humanity, that is called the wisdom of connection. What are these things actually? Kabbalah, actually, what we talked about, speaks about the network of connections, which is the spiritual network of connections, and Kabbalah describes it. This is the system of relations between the souls. This is adapted only for the points in the hearts. Let's say that this is what Kabbalah is engaged in. Meaning all this is education. It's education only on the level of Kabbalah, on the highest level. The quantum physics of the souls. And below, there is the level of this world. In order to rise, we have to create a method. Let's just write method. Which is called the wisdom of connection, this method. And its purpose is to develop in us such a feeling from which we will transcend to the feeling of the connections between us. This is the wisdom of connection, what we have here. It's a method that we'll experience ourselves in as well, in order for us to be able to pass it on to humanity too. And then we have two things. We both experience it on ourselves, we're connected to the sources, and with its help we'll be able to transcend to this feeling. And we'll rise to this thing. This is what's amazing. We will rise to this with all of humanity. Today, just understand the integral reality. If in the past, individual Kabbalists was the dream of any person who came to study Kabbalah, I remember I wanted to grab Rav Leitman, take him with me into some cave and study with him. What are all these people standing around for? What do I need them for? And it's a natural feeling of the ego. But today we're in a different reality, or an integral reality, where we're all interconnected, interdependent, and therefore it's impossible that a certain part in the system will transcend without raising with it the rest of its parts. And therefore our transcension, the transcension of reality, we through the wisdom of Kabbalah and the wisdom of connection, and they through the wisdom of connection, has to happen in parallel.
We will even see, and you will feel it on yourselves and about your environment, how everyone, well, we can use that word already, that your role is to make the rest of the people to spiritual transcendence. You will see how much the spiritual transcendence of everyone individually is connected directly to the extent that you contribute and bring the rest of the people that ability. And this is what the studies of happiness speak of also. If we go down to the wisdom of connection, where we deal with the rest of the people, so we see that my happiness and Tal's happiness and Moshe's happiness, in the most simple way, depends in a very clear manner in the happiness of all of you. The three people live around me, not just my family, rather the rest of the people in broader and broader circles.
So 1 second we'll talk about the principles of our education. I'd like to read a quotation nonetheless by a great Kabbalist called Rav Kook. And he really speaks about what we talked about now. He says the big spiritual questions that used to be solved only by the great and the excellent must now be solved on different degrees for the entire nation. To lower exalted and sublime matters from the height of their tower to the depth of the common and ordinary, this requires tremendous and great richness of spirit, along with constant regular engagement, for only then the mind will expand and the language will be made clear to the point of expressing the deeper matters in a light and popular style to revive thirsty souls, which means the ability to unite, to bring Kabbalah and to bring it down. What does it mean to bring it down? To bring it down to a point where any housewife or whoever will really feel this thing in simple words, in a heartly fashion. And for this, as he says, you need to constantly be engaged in this. We really have to be on the highest level in order to be capable to pass it on to the people.
So Isabel from Madrid is asking about this. If we intensify the connection between us, do we become like pipelines of light? The light can go through us to the rest of humanity? It's exactly it. It's exactly it. But let's keep it for the stage where we'll talk about the main tool of our practical method, where we'll be able to understand it better.
Maybe one more question. We mentioned integral education. So, is the work in this kind of education, do we talk about the Creator there too? And if not, how does it become a part of that picture? By the way, Tiago from Portugal is asking that. Tiago Pinto, we know him. Look, we will be engaged in this lexicon. Bala Sulam says, you can talk about nature, because nature in Gematria is God, doesn't matter what terms do I use. So we say nature to people, it's true, only that the Kabbalists, they transcend to such an extent that they call it by names according to how they feel. It's the system of Atzilut, of Binah, and so on, and accordingly they call it Elohim, Shaddai, whatever names, up to the elaborate names. That's it. Let's talk about a few basic principles in this education of the wisdom of connection, and we'll be right back.
So what's the first principle, Moshe?
So as Amit pointed out earlier, you can write these principles down. By the way, I saw that many people are starting to, on their Facebook pages, especially in the Italian group for some reason, summaries. I saw summaries about what we talked about on the last lesson. It was really, really amazing. So there is a reality here that you will see that there are completely different laws to it. The moment you start connecting between you, it's a completely different world. It's not the same. I don't know how to put it, but do it. So it really evokes envy. And education, as Amit pointed out, and Rav Leitman said the same, it is when I turn myself up, where education, it has to be like nature, which progresses with nature, that nature, like in nature, there's no suppression, that there's no punishment, that lets the desire develop, and the desire itself will understand the need, and so on. The same with our nature.
One of the main principles, in my opinion, is the principle where we are drawn to the light and don't focus on the ego, the darkness. Rav Kook writes about it in these words: let us increase light instead of fight darkness. So we want to focus on the positive thing, on what unites us, and not to try and correct what separates us and what divides us. And this is not semantics. These are not just words. It's a very essential principle. We do not want to delve into the disputes and differences and conflicts and the lack of our ability to connect. Rather, all we look for is the bridges through which we can connect with each other. Same with kids, same with adults, also with couples. We're always searching for the place. Even if we don't give up for each other, we look for how we can rise above it. The moment we look for the place where we can rise to a common place, a connected and united place, in that place, and we feel the separation, we feel the anger and the fear and the hatred. In that place, this is where love is revealed. Only on top of the transgressions can love be revealed.
So if you look at the sketch here, it's like, it's a fight, like a fight between a married couple. I have to learn how to hold this pan. Okay, here we have the husband, here we have the wife. The husband is going bold. And that's the connection between them, and each one of them tells the other how wrong he is. And each of them wants to be right. So if they just engage in the negative, they'll never get out of it. The way to get out of it is just to engage in the good without touching the bad. Let's just take an example, but to show you a tangible principle. And if they're engaged only in the positive between them, why does it build? And they can always take a layer, a slice of their ego, and try to work on it. But from where? From the point of connection between them. Because that's what the reforming light influences this thing. Because if we make this positive connection between us, we're drawn to the good, and we want to be in the good, then by this we draw the influence of the reforming light, because to some extent we're in equivalence of form with it, where the upper reality has a good connection, and it's drawn to connection and reciprocal bestowal and happiness, and in that state, it comes. And this way I could set an example about economics, kids' education, family, spouseness, anything you choose. This is the way. Soon we'll talk about the workshop being the method. This is the way to cope with anything and everything.
So I have a question. Marianne from Paris is asking, she says, so what is the role of the distance between us, whether it is symbolical or a real distance, a physical distance? What is the role of the distance between us? The role of the distance is a place that we can bridge. Meaning in the spiritual world, in the reality which we are about to enter, there is no distance, there is no time, there is no place, and we have to try and depict that reality through a very practical work in the connection between us and the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, which draws the light upon us, and to try and feel it. So, actually, We can give an example for it because I assume that each and every one of us, when he had experienced some love connection, he feels that the distance is narrowed down. And Bala Sulam talks about it also. When two lovers, even if the ocean separates them, but they really, really love each other, there is no distance between them. They live inside each other, and the ocean doesn't separate them. And on the other hand, they can live at the same home, sleep in the same bed, and there is an abyss between them, a snake between them.
Okay, so that's the thing. And the distance or the shattering, thing that we feel the distance is in order for us to be able to bestow to each other, to come closer. I'm not talking about physical distance, but because of the feeling of the contrast, we will be able to give the light, we'll want to give light to each other, and by that we will reach equivalence of form with the Creator. So another rule, law, principle in education, we're talking about, when we say education, we're just talking about kids' education. We're talking especially about the education of adults. We're talking about there being no suppression, no morals, no punishments, no limitations, meaning that it won't help if a person limits himself or he will be limited. It will always burst out twice as big, and you're not educating a person. So if a person wants to develop the sensitivity towards others, and not by limiting myself and being nice, and because it's impossible to suppress the desire. We talked about it, we saw examples, but everything has to come according to the recognition of evil and the recognition of good. We have to redefine these values in life. Who will redefine them? What, I'll put in some disk or unplug something or what? There was a student that he liked the Matrix, so what will I do? We talked about it in free choice. We're talking only about environment, media, anything that influences us. We need to create an environment or come to some course that we're making where we formulate an environment that will give me the importance of unity, that will show me that here it's good and here it's bad, and you'll see that it's like with a magic wand. Suddenly you see how the environment influences you. Up to this day, you will not aware. Somebody, Moshe Aleph, goes into some interaction with an environment, and you come out, you suddenly feel the process, how it operates on you. It's amazing. You suddenly say, whoa, you still feel that same Moshe Aleph, it influences me now. I start feeling from Moshe Bet, and that my desire is going in this direction. It's amazing, this feeling. The environment, it determines the process, and the moment that the environment, it determines for smaller or bigger children the values of good or evil that we can appreciate and enjoy. The connection between us, that we influence each other and I can enjoy by others enjoying, then suddenly I start saying that I have an infinite source of pleasure.
There are not enough words to speak about the importance of the environment as the most fundamental concept for the spiritual development of the entire humanity and 100% of those who study Kabbalah. But as we have said, you remember this, what Korchak said, to correct men. In order to correct men, we have to correct education. So in order to correct education, we have to correct the environment. We won't be able to create a method of education no matter what if it doesn't take into consideration that the entire education, kids to adults, has to be done inside an environment by building an active environment of those people who are a part of that environment. And here basically we see that education, it's not sitting like this in front of a board with and absorbing knowledge or in front of a computer screen. Rather, education is an active part which allows each and every one in our technological world, with all the opportunities we have, with all the infinite connections that, as Moshe mentioned before, I can implement my good and correct connection to all the details that I see in front of me. Of course, we should start with our relatives or the points in the heart which are with me in the same gear, same motion, and they understand what I'm going through and how I now have to work with it. But gradually you will expand your circles until we will reach a state, as we have said before. Rav Kook wrote about it. I wish I could embrace the entire humanity and put them into a single body.
There are many methods, by the way. I used to be engaged in education, so I know many methods that talk about this. There is one difference, and we'll talk about this soon. The difference is in the goal you said before. Those participants, what do they focus their work on? Now I want to talk about the greatest difference, which is the reforming light. And it has to do with what we talked about, and Dr. Lightman always says this to everyone, that all in all, the education is done when we, which are connected to the Kabbalists, through us passes the light, and the light is what grows the awareness, the sensitivity towards the quality of bestowal. That's it. Don't think that education has to do with being virtuous or methods or researches, OECD or whatever. Education is the work of the light. And therefore we, really, one by one, will discover it. How you were chosen by a pincette. When we were told this about, 9 years ago, I can't remember, we said, why are you saying this? What, is he giving us a nice speech? No, suddenly start feeling that, yeah, I have a role. And you'll really see that in the future you will come, you will be in touch with people in order to pass the method on to them as to how to have a good life. Suddenly you'll see that something's changing, something's igniting in them from this simple thing called connection between people. And in this connection, they start being sensitive to what we talked about on the previous lesson, from the laws of the me to the laws of the we. Same laws. I start feeling the interactions between us in the group, in the circle, those very things that previously were cut off from me. I didn't want to feel them. So all these principles of the me and the we and everything are learned in a group. What else?
The most intimidating or not clear point in this whole story, that we do everything together in a group and we want to disappear into something that is called one. And then a person asks himself, but where is me? Where is I there? And who's going to feel if I disappear in this one and we're all together? So where is this I of mine? And that I of mine is a great, profound question which becomes clear as we go, because it is comprised from the measure of uniqueness of a person. Now we're used to identify with our ego and say, the body is me, Amit. We're going to talk a lot in the next lesson about the perception of reality. We will see that this notion of I is also very amorphic. It is defined by different people, the same Amit, the same me differently. So this me is not clear, but that uniqueness of Amit, of Moshe, of Tal, of each and every one of us, that has such and such qualities and such character, it enters, it operates as it used to inside the system of reception. It leads to destruction. But if we know how through a spiritual environment to turn it into, to leverage it into a direction of spirituality, of light, then all of a sudden we see that every detail, as Moshe said, why were we all chosen in a tweezer? Because only he can do this and say that and contribute to that. And Bala Sulam writes about it in the Peace in the World very beautifully. I want to read it with your permission. And although we have explained the measure of uniqueness, a most exalted, sublime reason that this archetype extends and where it all comes from to us directly from the Creator, who is single in the world and the root of all creations. Still, out of the sensation of singularity, when it sits within our narrow egoism, it affects ruin and destruction until it became the source of all the ruins that were and will be in the world. So the circle education in the wisdom of connection brings a person to work correctly with the quality of his uniqueness, not to nullify it as we think of nullification, not to be a hermit or to oppress it or to restrict yourself. To the contrary, open up your uniqueness, your own special uniqueness, by contributing into this big collective, and with this big collective, identify with it now.
It's like the example we gave on lesson number 5 with the freedom of choice, that I have this fundamental desire, and if I dip it into the environment, not wanting to exploit everyone in my own favor, but if I dip my essence into the environment, there it develops. Quick example from school. Teachers, when I come to them, they say, yeah, but what's going to be about me, about kids? You erase him. It's clear. And then you discover that actually there's a child who's born high, a girl who's born pretty, a kid that runs fast, a kid that's smart, a kid that's skinny,
A nerd.
and each one of them according to how nature made them. Instead of talking about kids, I'm going to talk about cows now. There's a cow with this, I don't know, that looks one way, or a cow that has stripes. So does a cow with stripes feel itself special compared to another cow? No, that's not uniqueness. When you look at uniqueness compared to each and everyone's ability to donate his uniqueness to the group, the team, the class, the whatever, suddenly there's a completely new realm where everyone on the one hand is equal, and on the other hand everyone is different in their ability of donating their uniqueness regardless in which direction for everyone. And then it develops, because then I develop all of my muscles, not the individual muscles but the social muscles. Were all interconnected. Then I started developing them in a way that I couldn't do it in any other place if I were to use this uniqueness for myself. And here we are reaching the central key in our education, method of education.
The workshop. Are there any questions before we get into it?
Maybe something small about the environment. There is a misunderstanding. We said that it's hard to correct the ego. We also said that we don't exactly correct it, but we learn how to work with it correctly. So Rosie is asking, Rosie from England, is it not hard, maybe even harder, to correct the complete environment than just correcting the ego? Amit, he gave me the answer. There are a few answers about this. First of all, specifically because we're all interconnected. The moment part of us correct themselves, and we explained it on part of the lessons, if we're all interconnected, and the fact that we've corrected ourselves and this influences other people, it influences the whole world. Suppose Rosie, who has a point in the heart and lives in England, suddenly she woke up And she's asking, okay, why am I here? And so on and so forth. And suddenly there are other people in the world. We all have an opinion that we're all interconnected. We have to stop with the ego. Suddenly, it becomes like social concession. A few years ago, if we were to talk about it, we'd say, nah, people are wolves toward each other. Care for yourself. And suddenly what happened? Because we developed the method. I'm telling you, this is something that Dr. Lightman explains. This method, it extends in other people through the reforming light. And they become more sensitive, more understanding. So, first of all, creating an environment that's on the level of connection between us. This is what Kabbalists did, by the way. This is how Moshe and Amit woke up a few years ago, and Rosie and others, and Wilhelm, and in different countries. This is the first thing. The other thing is that there's the matter here that you really have to create an environment. But we see that many people today are searching not for Kabbalah, but for a simple method as to how to live, how to have a good life. Look in England, look in Spain, look in many countries in Europe. Give people the method of how to feel good in life, how to get along, that they suffer from the crisis, especially from the connections between us, and they'll run for it. So he'll give an internet course, he'll give something here, there. Each one becomes a guide for more and more. Let's talk about the workshop. Look.
Okay, let's talk about a workshop. We will talk about the most practical tool that we have to work between us. Those people with the point in heart awakening them, those who study the wisdom Kabbalah, and work between us and people who haven't awakened to study the wisdom Kabbalah yet. This is such a universal, ultimative, absolute tool. It stems from spirituality. It seems very simple. It seems like something we know, but when you start practicing it, guiding it, we start to understand that we're talking about a device from the upper world. We call it a workshop, a circle, a seminar. There are different names to it, but basically it's very simple. People sit in a circle, 5, 6, 10 people, the most suitable, according to the equivalence with the 10 Sefirot. And by the way, we will dedicate a complete lesson in the second semester to this tool called a workshop. We will understand its spiritual sources and so on. But the moment people sit together in a circle and talk between them about a certain topic according to certain rules that soon we will mention, we see that a place for warmth and connection and association and connection between them is created in the external level. They can solve any problem, and on the internal level we're talking about a tool for equivalence of form, meaning if we start exercising it in a more internal way, that circle, those connections that we now want to find between us, and through them to build this one common warm center, then we can reach a state where in such a simple circle where we sit together and talk. But we deal with inner work. We allow the light to come and to elevate us to a different sensation of a common kli, of a common emotion and of a common mind, intellect, something which is not mine, yours, hers, rather of all of us, and above all of us, above the we, and above that we, even to reach a state of one. And that is what the workshop does. It takes every person, every individual person who is me. Gradually we start feeling as we, and gradually we can even feel as one. You want to talk about the rules a little bit?
The rules, these are rules that match the laws of nature. These are things that Kabbalists did since the beginning of, since there were Kabbalists. This is something that Moses did, Rabbi Shimon did. This is how they revealed their mutual compositions, like the Book of Zohar, like other books, and all over the world there are workshops that Dr. Lightman gives, and it's translated into all languages. You can even watch it. The workshop goes as follows. There's a question which Rav Lightman asks about. It doesn't matter what the question is, by the way. And those friends, they work according to certain rules. The first rule: we do not negate any opinion, but everyone tosses their opinion into the center of the circle. Mutual circle, this is what we want. I don't negate, I don't criticize the opinions of others, but I only add to it. And it doesn't matter, maybe Tal's opinion on whatever topic, my ego jumps against it, you'll see, but no, I make an inner effort to add to what she said. Maybe her opinion is completely opposed to mine. I keep that resistance, but from externally, I add. I want to join her. I don't care about the words, the blah blah, whatever she says. I don't care the externality. I want to connect with Tal, and then Amit said something and I agree with his opinion. There's, you can't give a speech, but you speak briefly, and Amit.
Usually pass it with a speaking object. We manage the workshop around the clock using a speaking object. Every workshop has a moderator, a host, and someone who even documents what's going on during the workshop. And the workshop is also a tool to solve problems or to creatively create things that we want to implement or do. But above everything else, the workshop is a tool to unite, to connect.
And every workshop starts with raising the warmth and the mutual feeling. It's a real craftsmanship to control to give a workshop, to bring the people participating to these feelings. So first of all, you start from warmth and a mutual basis. An example for a question. One of the happiest moments, I don't know, what is happiness for me? Or tell about one of the moments in which I was happy or I did something good and pleasant for others, for someone. And things that create mutual warmth between us. There are no unpleasant questions that awoke unpleasant things, but we are in the process of creating a good mutual warm feeling.
I want to say that we describe here a circle of conversation, but it is a very trivial thing. It might seem to you, okay, I can imagine that. It's something very, very trivial. People sitting in a circle. It's been done for ages. Even the Indians. What makes it different? What makes the workshop? Okay, there are some nuance in the rules, but what is the essential thing that is different between that tool called the workshop to the rest of the formats where people sit in a circle and share their views?
When I feel like sharing, when I feel like throwing in whatever of mine, and I want to share something and go, there's something pleasant about it. We're not saying that there isn't, but there is something very special. I don't simply want to give up my opinion, make compromise like Tal said. I'll find something in order to agree with them. The words don't matter here. Only one thing matters. The connection, it's called the integration. I want to be absorbed in what Tal says. I really want to live, to feel her desire, to feel her heart, her warm aspiration toward the goal, because she too and all the friends, I'm talking about us now, we came to unite, and together we want to feel a mutual center, warm center created between us, and therefore atop all these problems, the corporal reality and everything, to be 1 meter above all these things. We want to feel the reality which is in the upper system. How? Because we operate according to the laws of equivalence of form. That's it. Connection, consent, heartliness, warmth, inner effort, what you will usually discover that is outside of this cycle of the workshop. The reality is completely opposite. Try to talk to people, you'll see. But moreover, what changes, what is the goal and the focus? The goal on the workshop is connection between us in order, or I'd say that it's in order for us to create a kli, a mutual desire in which the light will reveal the Creator. My focus on the workshop, it's not the words about being smart, intelligent, showing myself. No, the words are a means. Amita's drawing something.
This is the focus.
We want to create a mutual center between us, where each one of us, with his ego, remains on the outside. I and all the ego and everything that I'm against and the connection and I don't want and all that stays on the outside, and we bring in. The method is that you answer questions, but we actually leave. I do it this way. I draw our mutual points in the heart, that every friend here feels the inclination of all of us toward the connection. And this is the only thing that I look at on the workshop. Meaning, it's not whether the success is not about whether I answered correctly or not, but the achievement is whether I supported everyone in intention, wanting them to succeed in the connection. Suddenly I want to feel a dimension of feeling which opens the ordinary reality, that who says more, who says less, who's this, who's that. Showing myself, I open up the feeling towards something else, toward a dimension of connections between us, a dimension of connection between us, some kind of a new center which is created between us. And on this dimension, there starts life. There's a perception of the most complicated things talked about on Kabbalah. Through this, you can talk about the writings of the Kabbalists and understand them through a mutual mind where we're one, because that's the clear, actually. And from there, like Amit said, you can take decisions, whether they're business or any other kinds of decisions, once you rise to that place. Why? Because that place is the highest place of the beginning of the network of connections, out of which you start engaging in things of this world, things that work, don't work. And if we just stay and make a circle like in any other place, we just have a discussion and we fight with each other and you agree or you don't agree, then we won't succeed. We'll always remain down below. We can talk a lot about this workshop. We'll dedicate a special lesson for it.
We'll have a special lesson about it. We'll start exercising it.
Yeah.
But I think the first meaningful time will be in the convention, that we all see each other.
But I recommend get on the morning lessons. Do it on real time if you can. Or we'll do it sometime together. All of us that will watch together will have a special lesson where Dr. Leitman will answer our questions. And also we have the archive. Download it, look at the workshop, how it works. Read on the blog, on Rob's blog. Get on there, and I'm telling you, we'll start feeling until this thing will become the form of relations between us. The form of relations. Inner form of relations. How I, with the friends, with the Creator, with the humanity, and also on this workshop.
There's a miracle, almost like a magic that cannot be explained, that cannot be put into words. I cannot explain it now. Where people sit together, and why is it so powerful in a convention? You will see it in a few months when we will be there. You will see it with people from different nations, different cultures, different languages. You didn't know them before. You would never sit with them in your life and in a circle. And all of a sudden, a feeling of love is revealed to them. You simply start loving each other, and this is something which is miraculous. It chokes your throat with gratitude, because that is something that fills you up with so much hope and joy and meaningful, and with the understanding that this path is the true path, and so on and so forth. But one last thing, I think, just one more point. Why a workshop, and in what sense is it different from other ways to communicate? Well, you see it, Moshe drew it nicely. That place where we gather already has light in it. Only we have to be aimed towards the light. The workshop is very effective, and I would even be very careful and say it's not effective with people who don't have the point in the heart. Only with those people, as we have drew before, only if they're connected to somewhat to that degree, to that system, and their connection to the Kabbalists, to the teachers, is already there, only then there is some ability to conduct that workshop correctly, accurately.
Since we're still in this world, our time is up. We'll just say that once we create this circle and we circle the whole of humanity, we put everyone in this form, we create like rings of tubes, one over the other, like molecules or Lego, where we build parts which are subparts of equivalence of form, and so on between people. No big buildings, no economy, no nothing. You'll see that all the everything humanity has focused down into this circle. For better, for worse, everything is done there. All the education that a person has to go through is focused down on this circle in brotherly love, so-called. And if we build the pipeline, then we have a direct line to equivalence of force with the Creator. We will feel this body being the whole of reality, which is the perfect form, and we as the head will start feeling the thoughts of the Creator, how to bestow onto this entire body, and we'll live in light and good. So with these words, we will end. See you on the Facebook. And next week, excellent lesson, perception of reality. See you together. All the best.